Hi, I wasn't going to blog anymore about UKIP and the Eastleigh by-election, but it's just so deliciously interesting and the stories going on. One thing that's happened is that the Conservative Party, or at least the so-called Conservative Party, have started to make all sorts of panicked promises that they're going to really seriously now reduce immigration, and that now they'll take us out of this hated so-called human rights thing. They're only doing this because of the UKIP turn in Eastleigh. And they're making false promises. Now, human rights, first of all, I must say that human rights, how can you be against human rights? Well, it depends what you think human rights are. The European Court of Human Rights wants us to give votes to criminals while they're in prison, and it forces us to carry on feeding, clothing and housing anti-British radical jihadists who have come here without our permission and who we can't deport. Because they say, oh no, it'll affect their human rights. Foreign criminals come here, beget children for the state to look after, commit crime. We're talking about burglary, hit and run car accidents and stuff. And British courts want to deport them, and European rights courts say, no, you're not allowed to deport them. You've got to carry on feeding and clothing and housing them at the taxpayers' expense. So it's not about human rights, it's about compulsory top-down socialist government from these people. Anyway, it's hated, and Theresa May is latching onto this and saying, oh dear, lots of people voted UKIP, we'd better throw them some stuff. But, it's about proposals. They might put something in the manifesto. She wants... It is set to be a manifesto promise. All of this is puff and spin, and we're getting a lot of that. Hey, even Ed Miliband, the communist leader of the Labour Party, he came out and said, look, we're sorry, we made some mistakes over immigration. No, you didn't. You deliberately brought in 3 million immigrants, and Google Andrew Neither, who blew the gaff on this. It was deliberate social engineering, but he now realises it's losing him votes big time among ordinary Labour voters. So he's sort of apologising. This is really quite interesting. This is all a reaction, and apart from anything else, this proves beyond doubt that it is not a wasted vote to vote for UKIP if you sympathise with them, because big UKIP votes are forcing the other parties onto the defensive with their unpopular policies that they thought they could get away with because LibLabCon are agreed on a largely socialist agenda. The other thing that's interesting, and it happened within seconds of the vote being announced, with UKIP beating Conservatives into second place, is we're being smeared with the BNP. Simon Hughes started this, Liberal man. UKIP has got nothing to do with the BNP. UKIP does not allow former BNP members to join. They are anti-Jew, they are anti-black, they are controlling people, they want to bring in censorship and they want to nationalise a whole load of stuff. Check them out. A lot of people in BNP have got criminal convictions for racial violence. They are nothing to do with UKIP whatsoever. But the left are going into overdrive, smearing UKIP with the BNP. It started within seconds of the result. Expect a lot more of that. The other thing I think people should expect is probably some more scandals within UKIP. I believe, although I can't prove, I believe that there are some deeply placed Conservative Party moles in UKIP, and they're sitting there gathering information, passing information back, and they're going to blow things up. They're going to cause a scandal every now and then strategically. I can't prove this. I can't prove it. Call it another conspiracy theory if you like. But UKIP's had a lot of bad luck. We've had a lot of things that have gone wrong, which you needn't have gone wrong. And I think it's in the interest of the Conservative Party to damage UKIP. So expect lots of nasty tricks. Expect lots of slander. For sure, that's all going to happen. But I think it's all very interesting. We've got them scared. If only 2,000 Eastleigh voters hadn't wasted their vote voting for the not particularly good Conservative candidate and voted instead for the brilliant Diane James, we'd now have a UKIP Member of Parliament to give these guys a kick up the backside. And interestingly, so Peter Hitchens, and I'm a great fan of Peter Hitchens. He's not. I don't agree with him about everything, but he's put the finger on a lot of things, and he has the right to say what he has to say because he used to be a revolutionary communist. He gave that up and abandoned it. He knows what goes on inside revolutionary communism. He was a long-term political commentator, and if you read his book The Cameron Delusion, he explains why David Cameron became leader of the Conservative Party when it should have been David Davis. Very interesting story. But one of the things he says is that the one thing the British left really fears more than anything else is for the entity currently calling itself the Conservative Party to actually be destroyed. Because if it did, then all of the people who were fed up with paying too much tax and with having politically correct nonsense rammed down our throats all the time would then be compelled the difficult task of rebuilding a new party which stood for centre-right values. And if that could happen without all the toxic problems associated with, you know, the various Tory bribe takers and spivs and problem people in the past, if we could unite the British centre-right, then that would knock the other guys out of town, and they know it. So it's actually in the interest of the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives to maintain a fairly useless Conservative Party, to dupe conservative-minded, small c conservative-minded people into voting for them, and that's why that's why both sides hate UKIP equally. Anyway, watch out for false, undeliverable promises being made by the Conservatives, and watch out for racist slanders from the left, because I think we're going to see a lot more of both of them in future, since so many people in Eastleigh put their X against Diane James of UKIP.